So that's why you might want to use this rather than a Alfa adapter, right, with Cori, because you've got all these reports pre-made for you.
And the guy recognized somehow that his account had been taken over. And so he changed his password. The password was "mother effers are in my computer." How much of that should we redact when we provide it to their bosses?
I'll tell you this, I've done some videos where I show people how to crack short passwords. And the number one complaint I get is, no one would use a password like this. It's dumb.
They're wrong. But yeah, I see a lot of really crazy stuff.
Hey everyone, David Bombal back with Cori. Cori, welcome.
Hey David, thank you so much for having me back.
So good to have you back. We had so much great feedback on our previous video. For anyone who missed it, use the link below. Cori hacked me. Now, Cori, whenever I talk to you now, I'm really scared because I'm worried that you're going to hack me again or you're going to hack my Wi-Fi. What are we looking at today?
So today we are going to be looking at the WiFi Pineapple. It's basically just a Wi-Fi auditing tool. It's made by Hak5. They make a variety of pen test tools. It's going to be a lot of fun.
I'm glad that we're doing this because I've had a lot of requests for specifically the Wi-Fi Pineapple. So do you want to take it away, kind of like tell us what it is, why it's important? Do you actually use it? And I mean, I'm assuming you use this on a lot of your pen tests. So hopefully we can get some like war stories as well.
Awesome. Yeah. So this may be a bad thing, but I actually don't use the Wi-Fi Pineapple that frequently.
I mean, I'm shocked.
But it is a great tool. I use just a standard wireless card. That's what this is. When I do Wi-Fi pen testing.
Alfa card. It's an Alfa network adapter, is it?
It is an Alfa, yeah.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. Why would you use the Wi-Fi Pineapple rather than, say, an Alfa?
Well, the Wi-Fi Pineapple comes with its own GUI, which is very end-user friendly, right? Yep. People can interact with a graphical interface versus just, pre-installing their own tools and, doing everything out of the terminal.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the problem with the Alfa is you got to make sure you get one that works with your distribution. A lot of people have struggled with 5 gigahertz rather than 2.4 to get the drivers installed. Whereas like the Pineapple comes with everything pre-installed, it's got a pretty GUI, it's all ready to go, right? Exactly.
Yeah. And that was a great point that you brought up, 2.4 versus 5. And so that used to be a problem with the Pineapple as well, right? There is a lot of questionable things that happen once you start to integrate 5 gigahertz bands. But so today we're actually using the Pineapple MK7. It's this fancy schmancy thing. And it actually works with both 2.4 and 5. So very cool feature of that. And I should say, this actually is not my Pineapple. This is my friend Blake's. He let me borrow it to make this video. I actually only have a Nano. So thanks, Blake. I really appreciate it.
So we'll put Blake's details below. Go and follow him. He's on Twitter, is that right?
He is on Twitter, yeah. I'll share his Twitter.
So Blake, thanks so much for sharing.
Perfect. Yeah. So, and I have all of these tools out, kind of like a little show and tell. I love Hak5. I think that they do really great stuff. The tools that I use mostly for them in terms of like a professional setting are the Shark Jack and the Land Turtle. They have very similar functions. The Shark Jack, basically you plug it into a network and it does like a very short Nmap scan and then you can pull it off. And it's like an under 30-second process. I think it only has like a 2-minute battery charge. So
we'll have to get you back for demoing those. So can I just ask the audience, which Hak5 tools do you want Cori to demonstrate? Cori, you do a lot of pen tests, so it's great to get your real world experience and stories. So please put in the comments which Hak5 tools you want us to cover. But Cori, I don't want to keep you any longer. Go for the demo.
Perfect. Okay, so for the sake of a demo, I thought that we could do everything from scratch.
That'd be great. Yeah, a lot of people struggle with that. Yeah, because it's like I get the Pineapple, now what? So we won't do the unboxing because you've got it in your hand, but everything else is all right.
Perfect. Yeah. So this is the MK7. It has this little button on the front, and then you'll see the flashing LED. And I think to do a factory reset, I believe you just hold this button for 4 seconds. We'll find out live if that's true. I think that it should start flashing red. Okay, 1, 2, 3. And you're supposed to hold that button for about, I think it's just 3 flashes of the red light. And then you'll just see a static red light. I think you just wait a few seconds. Okay, so you can see that I was at this before. My pineapple is still red though. Let's refresh this.
So you connect, just so that everyone understands, you connecting via USB on your computer into the Wi-Fi Pineapple, and that's powering it and also giving you a connection. Is that kind of right?
Yes. Thank you so much for mentioning that. So I am connected USB-C to my computer. And to do the factory reset, you have to have that connection.
And Cori, the other thing is, do you have to configure your PC or something with an IP address in the same subnet as the Pineapple? Does it come with like a default IP address or something?
Exactly, yeah. So, and we'll go into the Hak5 documentation a little later, but the standard is 172.168.42.42. The port for the actual interface that you interact with is 1471. I know that's an Easter egg for something. I can't remember what it is, but Darren Kitchen, the guy that made Hak5, I think he said it has something to do with the king. I can't remember, but did I answer that correctly? How you wanted it?
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, because people are not gonna know this. So you configured your device with 172.16.42.42. That's the address that your PC has to be configured with, correctly? Or correct, sorry.
That my Pineapple has to be configured with, yeah. If you go to the bottom right-hand corner and you just see all of these, then you'll just right-click, hit properties or whatever, and then that's how you access it.
Cori, I'm a boomer, so just to make sure I understand this correctly, you went into the properties of the Wi-Fi Pineapple management interface. You configured it with that IP address. 172.16.42.42. And then now we can hopefully connect to the graphical user interface of the Pineapple, right?
Yes. Okay, so did a factory reset of the Pineapple while it was plugged into my computer, so it was powered on, and then went ahead and changed the settings for this and gave it the static IP of 172.168.42.42, which is the Pineapple standard. You'll navigate to that IP with no port specified, and you'll get this recovery option. And I think it's very similar when you do that initial setup. It's almost the exact same thing. And so you'll choose recovery, and you'll just have to upload the newest firmware for this Pineapple. I think the link for that is like hak5.org/downloads. And we'll probably just wait a minute for this to upload. It usually takes a few minutes, and I found that this interface on the site doesn't usually like refresh in time. So usually before it even lets you know that it's finished, it is finished.
So I was just going to ask the boomer questions in this interview. So you configured the Pineapple with 172.16.42.42, but you've navigated in your browser to 172.16.42.1, right?
Yeah. So that's the gateway.
And then you log in. It asks you to set a username and password. Is that right? Or did you do the firmware upgrade first?
Yeah. So you just do the firmware upgrade first, and then afterwards you navigate to 1471, that port that everything's hosted on, and we'll start to work through that. This is the documentation. It's awesome. This is Darren Kitchen, the Hak5 guy. Sharon Morse, I hope I said her last name right, Snubs is what she really goes by. She has a lot of awesome content out there on Hak5 stuff too. So this is what we're going to be walking through, setting it up after that. This may take a minute. So
Cori, while we're waiting for this to update, which Alfa adapter is your favorite?
That's a great question. They have the longest, craziest names. So I buy a lot of wireless adapters, like a lot. This is the only one that I really get anymore. It's AWUS036ACH.
Yep.
I know that sounds really complicated, but it works really well with Kali. So that's my favorite.
And that one supports 5 gigahertz and 2.4, right?
It does, yeah.
And in your pen tests, do you find that you're doing a lot of 5 gigahertz these days, or is it just a mix and match of both frequencies?
It's a mix and match.
And while we're waiting for the Pineapple to upgrade, in your pen tests, what are the kinds of attacks that you generally use. Can you just explain, like, is it like, do you do brute force of PSK, appreciate keys, or, give us some examples of the kind of stuff that you do, and what's real world? Because I can create a video like saying, here's a GPU, I'm going to crack a appreciate key. But I mean, what are you doing in the real world, like day to day, when you do these pen tests?
Yeah, so that's exactly it. We do exactly the same stuff that the Pineapple does. And sometimes we do additional things like Wi-Fi OSANT, and that's basically nothing, but it's just like, walking the facility of an area and like aggregating all of the data of wireless networks, and then just compiling that into a report so that organizations can see, like, are there free and open networks around here that other people could be using to try to get our employees to connect to, or to impersonate any real networks that we have?
Do you do like fake access points or evil twin type access points? Is that how you capture credentials, or do you like knock off clients, or is it like all of the standard stuff that you do?
Yeah, really all of the standard stuff is what we do. A lot of like PSK stuff, just like the Pineapple, really, just like different physical tool. The reason I'm asking this, I'm trying to get a feel like theory in the books. Like we won't mention any certifications here, but like certain certifications are very theoretical versus what you actually find in the field. So do you have any favorite like Wi-Fi attacking methods that you think work really well? Like if I was going to go, let's say I was going to go to a pen test and I'm new, which one would you recommend I start with? Or do you have like sort of a cheat sheet? Because when you did the email campaign, you had like wonderful like templates. Do you have like a sequence that you follow, or any kinds of tips for someone who's new to this? Yeah, exactly. I do. So I have like a little playbook that I've created for myself to reference. I think most pen testers do that in almost everything that they do, if they don't completely automate them. But yeah, so there are some like standard tools that I think I definitely use. A lot of people out there use. So Wi-Fi would be one of them. If you're familiar with that. And then, of course, the AirCrack suite, which includes like the Recon NG and probably all of those other Wi-Fi tools that you've heard of.
It's interesting that you said Wi-Fi, because a lot of people would say that's script kiddie stuff. But I mean, it works, doesn't it?
It is. And it's funny that you say that, because I can't remember who said this to me, but years ago, they were like, look at information security. People are so big on using the word like script kiddie or
Yep.
skid. Just the term of that. But if you look at things like the OSCP, like the OSCP just makes you a script kiddie, right? Because it just teaches you how to use scripts to do everything within the scope of your job.
I think it's a very valid point. I mean, use the tools, don't reinvent the wheel. What's the point of that? Unless you want to try something to learn, or you need it for a specific use case. I mean, why not use the tools?
Exactly.
So just for everyone's benefit, I've put links below to information that Cori shared with us. Cori, thanks as always for sharing such valuable stuff. So we don't have it in the video, but I've put it below. Cori's going to share some of her secret sauce with us. So Cori, thanks as always.
So there's two different ways that you can start this up: with Wi-Fi disabled and with Wi-Fi enabled. It's just like a binary option. You either quickly press or you hold it for 4 seconds. I don't know if you have a preference on what we do. I've done it both ways. So
Cori, let's do the easy way, which is like use the Wi-Fi.
Perfect. Let's do it. And I think we can actually show here, like, this is exactly what I was talking about, where the page says that it's still uploading, but you can actually navigate to it. Actually, it does still look like it's loading. So I think we actually do need to wait another minute. So I guess we just need to wait longer. I've never had it take this long before, so I apologize.
It's going to take this long because we're recording. That's why. I've done this for years. It always works beautifully until you have to demo it. So don't worry. I know the pain. So Cori, let's while we're waiting for this, some real world stuff. What's the dumbest stuff that you found out in the real world? Like, did people set their passwords to like password or something really dumb on Wi-Fi networks? I'm just trying to, again, take it real world versus, what they teach in books.
Yes. I love that question. And I also feel bad because I'm afraid of someone watching this video we're recording and being like, hey, that was my password or, something like that. But yeah, I see a lot of really crazy stuff, especially with passwords, which is so funny that you mentioned that. A lot of swear words, like, derogatory terms against people's bosses or their job. But probably the funniest story that I have in regards to a password is one of my coworkers had actually compromised this machine, and then he was like using that user's credentials to like continue moving laterally throughout the network. And the guy recognized somehow that his account had been taken over. And so he changed his password. And of course, when we eventually took that password, cracked it, the password was "mother effers are in my computer." So yeah, but it's crazy. It'll be like, "I hate my job. I hate this place." And it's always funny. It's like, how much of that should we redact when we provide it to their bosses? Yeah, a lot of crazy stuff around passwords. Passwords is such a fun way to look. And I think something really interesting about passwords, there was this guy, I think his name was like Matt. I think his last name was Cure. His name was like Matt Cure. And he did a couple of DEF CON talks years ago, probably like 8 to 10 years ago. But they were all about like analyzing passwords and like what kind of passwords people create on different platforms. And it was some really interesting data. For example, when a person creates a password on a platform that's associated with their job, I think the likelihood of like a deity or a god being involved in that password was increased by like 30 to 40%. Wow. So it's really interesting to see statistics like that.
And on Wi-Fi passwords, do people use weak passwords as well, like really short passwords on the Wi-Fi stuff?
Yeah, definitely. They do.
I'll tell you this. I've done some videos where I show people how to crack short passwords. And the number one complaint I get is, no one would use a password like this. It's dumb.
They're wrong. I mean, password spring is such like an integral part of pen testing as well, which just goes to show, you know, people are still stuck on that. And beyond just spraying like regular common passwords like summer 2022, all that kind of stuff. But I found that if you take breached credentials from like any kind of data breach, like LinkedIn or whatever, and if you take someone's password and you attempt iterations of that, so if it's like Billy Bob 1786, if you change that to like Billy Bob 1787 or Billy Bob 1788, something sequential or an iteration, the likelihood of that being valid is also increased.
That's mad. And what about like RockU? People still using passwords in that?
Yeah, so people do use RockU, but I think RockU is more so used as like a base for like more alongside more sophisticated like password rules. So you'll take like RockU words, and then you'll be like, the first character of that string will always be capital. The last character will always be a special character, you know, followed by numbers, something like that.
On Wi-Fi pen tests, are you able to crack a lot of the passwords from outside the building? Do you have to like somehow social engineer your way into the building? You know, sort of what's your, you know, your playbook to crack a Wi-Fi network?
Yeah, so I do both. Usually if I have to do like a Wi-Fi test while I'm doing a physical pen test, which is accessing like the interior of the building, getting something on the network, something like that, I'll actually just sit in my car while I do the Wi-Fi testing and get as close as I need to, because this thing is not very conspicuous, you know? I mean, I could throw in a backpack or something, but usually with the kind of pretext that I use, because like I'm a young woman, something like a backpack would probably only hurt, you know, the way that I look. Okay, so this is like the initial setup. Obviously, everything in here is a graphical user interface, but it doesn't have to be. Once you actually finish the initial setup, you can just like establish a shell with the device. It's Bash. So you can have fun with that. So the root password is just the password you'll use every time that you try to set this up. And the time zone, I'm in Nashville, Tennessee. So that's central. And then we'll just walk through these kind of slowly. So the management AP, that's the access point that you're going to use to actually manage the Wi-Fi Pineapple remotely. So you get to pick this SSID. I'll say Fever Bundle. And the password, I mean, this is used to connect remotely. So you want this probably to be a stronger password.
She hacked my Discord, is that right? That's my password.
Yeah, exactly. And then the Open AP. So this is the access point instead of broadcast for other targets. I'll just call this Humble. Don't make it so complex that you forget it, though. Awesome. And then, so these the client filter setup and the SSID filter. So the client filter is it's basically like an allowed deny list for any of the actual devices that can connect to it. So if you do an allow and then you put in the MAC address for whatever device, that will be the only device that is allowed to connect to this. Versus if you do a deny list and you put nothing in here, then everyone can connect to it. Or if you just put one MAC address in the deny list, then only that device can connect to it. For the sake of this, it's just a demo. I know people are going to get mad at me. I'm going to do a deny none. I'll commit a cardinal sin right now by doing light, accept your terms of service and license agreement, but of course don't read them. And
that is not advice, legal advice, by the way.
Yes, I'm not a lawyer. So we're back here. Hopefully I can remember that password that I used. Perfect. And so now I'm going to connect it to the internet so I can do some fun things. Or we can just start by doing a walkthrough of this. So you can see there's 6 different graphical icons on the side. They're all different things, of course. This is the dashboard. So it lets you quickly see the logistics and statistics of everything that you've done recently, everything about the system. You can see your system status, disk usage. And then once we start running campaigns and attacks and stuff like that, we'll be able to see all the clients that we currently have connected and all of the clients in total that we have had connected, as well as the SSIDs that we've seen. And then, of course, just some notifications will also pop up here. This is the campaign tab. Campaigns are probably more of the Wi-Fi pen testing versus just having fun kind of stuff. Because when you create a campaign, you can configure it with whatever scripts that you want to run. So when you're using tools like Wi-Fi or Recon, NG, you can configure these campaigns with those, and then you can configure the campaigns to start whenever your Pineapple turns on. So you won't even have to touch this. You'll simply just bring your Pineapple with you to whatever physical location you're accessing and plug it in. Oh, and they also have reports, which is probably super beneficial for when you write up your pen test report.
So that's why you might want to use this rather than a Alfa adapter, right, with Cori, because you've got all these reports pre-made for you.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great point. They are pre-made. And of course, you can automate ways to take output from other tools and compile them into a report. But this is so simple and easy. And then, so these are some of the different aspects of the Pineapple itself. PineAP is when you think about the Wi-Fi Pineapple, you're really thinking about PineAP. PineAP is this suite of tools for the device. There's a bunch of different options here. So this just sets the behavior. So it'd be very similar to when you run those campaigns. I guess we can just go ahead and start one. Before I do that though, I'll go into the settings. So when you go into the settings of the Wi-Fi Pineapple, it has this amazing mode called censorship mode. Yeah. And it does exactly what you think it does. It just censors everything. And it even has random censorship, which is really fun because it makes all of the SSIDs different fruits. I guess you'll see it in a minute. But I'll do this so I don't
it hides all your SSIDs and MAC addresses, stuff like that, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so if you do the standard censorship mode, I think it just shows half of the strings as X's. And if you do the random censorship mode, it'll show them as fruits. I guess I'll have to do the previous one so that I know what I'm connecting to as well. So before we do that, let's actually go into this tab. This is the Recon tab. So Recon, reconnaissance. We'll go ahead and start a 1-minute scan. Reconnaissance is just the act of discovering things. So this is just going to take a look at all of the access points that we can see and all of the clients that are connected to those.
It's really simple, isn't it? I mean, it's the hardest part here so far has been trying to install the software.
Yes. And I'm sure that I know that it's easier when you're not streaming video and audio as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's not difficult. I mean, I think that's the great thing. I mean, it's you've got a dedicated device. You didn't have to type any commands. Whereas I'm just trying to in my head and for the audience try and balance. Do I just get an Alfa adapter? Or do I get a Pineapple? And I suppose the the problem sometimes with the Alfa adapters is you have to install, and I just say Alfa because I like Alfa as well. You have to, it's not sponsored, I'll just say that. This video is not sponsored by Alfa. You have to install drivers perhaps, especially with the 5 gigahertz adapters. You have to know the commands. I mean, you can script that, you can use Wi-Fi, stuff like that, but this is graphical, it's so easy, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah, it's easy. And I do want to say you're not sponsored by Alfa, but you could be. So if Alfa reaches out to David Bobble and wants to sponsor him, you're not close to that, right?
Yeah, they've so for disclosure, they have given me some adapters in the past, and I have given away some of the adapters, but they've never paid me. But yeah, of course, if Alfa want to sponsor or if Hak5 want to sponsor, and I will say this, Darren has been fantastic. I've spoken to Darren or DM'd him on Twitter, and he's also given me vouchers and coupon codes to give away. So really, shout out to both companies, both fantastic.
That's awesome. Yeah, but you made some amazing points. I mean, the real difference is ease of use, right? And skill level of the person using it. If you're just getting started into Wi-Fi testing or pen testing as a whole, and you're trying to explore different facets, you would probably want to start with the Hak5 suite because it's such a great introduction to those kind of things. It's
amazing. You've picked up a lot just in 1 minute, right?
Yeah. Yes, a lot. Very, very interesting. So this was our recon. We did our 1 minute scan. You can see up here some of the statistics of the things that we had identified. So all the greener access points, and then we have clients that were connected to those access points. We also have this activity log, which shows us everything that we've done on the Pine AP. Ignore the dates. I think that the date on this system is misconfigured. So that's that section. And then this. So this is also like in addition to Pine AP, like the heart and soul of the Wi-Fi Pineapple, which is the modules and packages. So let's take a look at the modules that we have. Oh, I need to connect to my network first. Yeah. So, and to connect to a network from your Wi-Fi Pineapple, you can just click, I think this is called a hamburger icon when it has the 3 dots, and then go to internet connection. And then hit network settings. Okay, and this is one thing that I noticed censorship mode doesn't do well is it does not censor anything when you are configuring your own network settings. Awesome, so we are connected to our own network. Now we can go back into the modules if it allows us. I think I've had to wait for this before. I think the modules are super beneficial because they have some really cool things, like just viewing any HTTP traffic as it comes in. And of course, there's Evil AP, which is probably one of the most famous like subsets of the Wi-Fi Pineapple. Yeah, so, and I will say between the campaigns and this, the Pine AP behavior settings down here, it's almost exactly the same thing, right? The campaign is when you configure the campaign, you're just additionally saying how you would want Pine AP to behave.
You can run different campaigns for different pen tests. That's kind of the idea, right?
Exactly, yeah. And you can configure it much better with your own scripts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But we'll run through these kind of behavior settings within Pine AP. The parallels between passive and active mode are that they both come with their own pre-configurations. So within passive mode, it's basically just like a recon. You're like collecting information about all the access points that you see. And then you can add all of those access points to a listing of access points to potentially advertise later on. That's that SSID pool. And then in active, you're doing both of those. But then you can actually advertise all of those SSIDs simultaneously. And then within advanced settings, you just it allows you to configure those settings a little more. So obviously logging all events, both passive and active do that. And then notifications for all clients that connect and disconnect, capturing SSIDs to that pool to impersonate. And then you can also broadcast those. I think that we can go ahead and start a passive scan. Awesome. And so we will see. And while we're doing this, let's see if we can get those modules again. Awesome. Okay. And these take a little bit to download too, I think, especially because we're talking right now. But we can just run through a couple of them. Some of my favorite ones, HTTP. I had mentioned that earlier. It just allows you to view all plain text HTTP traffic for the clients that are connected to APs that you own. Super beneficial, right? I mean, Yeah, you could say there's not a lot of HTTP traffic happening, but I think actually we should install this and maybe I can do it right now, connect my own device onto it, and then awesome. So you have to install the modules themselves. And then I think once you actually try to open a module, it may make you download more. Evil Portal. This is what I had mentioned earlier. This is probably, one of the most synonymous modules with the Wi-Fi Pineapple. It lets you create captive portals. So for example, when you go to a McDonald's or a hotel or something and you try to connect to their wireless connection and a little web page pops up saying, do you agree to our terms and conditions, or provide me your email address? That's just a captive portal, just like this. And the difference is that we are creating the captive portal here, or we're leveraging a captive portal that someone else has made, because there's a lot of these available out on GitHub. And of course, in the last video I made, I mentioned this thing called single file. You can actually use single file to grab a different captive portal, right? So super beneficial. We'll install it. We can probably run through it really quickly too. And then Nmap, of course. Nmap is just like a simple port scanner. There's like a graphical user interface for this. I just realized, I thought the graphical user interface for Nmap was called ZenMap, but I guess here it is just Nmap. Maybe those are two different things. I really don't know. HTTP. Let's see if we need to download anything before using it.
So you're just scanning the air, is that right? And then looking for stuff that's going to get captured. Is that kind of right?
Yes. And so what we're going to do right now, right now I'm just checking these modules, to see if they had any dependencies, because frequently I've noticed that they do have dependencies. And so they may just take a couple more seconds to download. But once these finish, we'll go ahead and spin up like an evil twin access point with Pineapple. I'll connect one of my devices to it, and then we'll just check out, I'll navigate to some like HTTP traffic so you can see what it would look like if you're out in the wild doing it. Oh, and so this is a great walkthrough too, real quick. So once you have run your recon and you can see all of the networks that are around you, you can click any of these devices. This is my network, so I feel comfortable doing this. I won't de-auth it so that David and I can continue to have a conversation over the internet. But you could just click, it's as easy as this little red button, right? You can just hit de-authenticate all clients. And then you can go ahead and try to capture those handshakes. And it's really that simple. Once you complete it, you can come back up here and you'll see your handshakes listed here. And then there's actually a subpage where they'll all be listed. And the format that they're listed in, I wish I did actually have this for you, but it's interesting because it provides it to you, I think, both in PCAP and like the hash itself, so that you can crack it in Hashcat. And then it also provides you like the Hashcat numerical value, which I think is like 22,000. Don't quote me on that. I know people are going to comment and be like, it wasn't 22,000. But it's really that simple.
One of my videos, which is quite popular this year, has been me using Hashcat with GPUs to crack passwords. And again, on that video, people were saying, David, this is dumb because who uses a password that's got a telephone number in? But the reason I used that as an example is because an Israeli researcher found that he was able to crack, and now I'll probably get it wrong, I think it was 70% of Wi-Fi networks in Tel Aviv, because most people were using their telephone number as their password on their Wi-Fi network. And I was saying, look, someone's done the research. This is real world, but I'm just going to show you how to use it with a GPU. But I didn't just show telephone numbers or 10-digit numbers. I also showed like how to use Hashcat for mixed digits and text and so forth. Just using GPUs to show how, if you've got a powerful GPU, you could get lucky and crack a password fairly quickly, or it could take a long time. It just depends.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say that, because I remember when that was published. And I was kind of blown away, because when I think of Tel Aviv, I think of a place that's like setting standards in security and probably way ahead of America in terms of information security and technology. But
I think it's a whole argument, it's this thing about like the security niche, if you like, or the people who into security understand the risks, and they hopefully don't do too many dumb things. But the general population who have no technical knowledge don't. They just do what's easy. And I mean, let's be honest, setting some crazy Wi-Fi password is fine, except when your family comes to visit or people come to visit and you have to share that password. So, I think non-technical people don't always realize the risks, and that's why they get caught.
Yeah, that's a great point. So here, we're back in our PineAP settings. OpenAP is that open access point that we are broadcasting. When we did the initial configuration, we named it Bomble, just to be silly. I mean, typically if you're doing something like this, you'd do I don't know if I can say this on YouTube, McDonald's free Wi-Fi, right? Because that's an open network and people are going to try to connect to it.
So just for anyone who's watching, this is one of the reasons for showing this is to also warn people that just because it says McDonald's Wi-Fi doesn't actually mean that it is, because Cori could be trying to hack all of us. So see this as education and show your grandmother, show your family who are not technical that, just because it says something doesn't actually mean that that's what it is.
So then I'm going to go on a device. I'm going to go on my cell phone and I'm going to go ahead and connect to that network. Because it's McDonald's free Wi-Fi. You can see in the upper right, we actually got a notification that a device had connected to it. And we can go down into our HTTP, which is that module that we had added earlier that just lets us view HTTP traffic in real time. We'll enable it and start. And then I'll go on my device. The website I like to use for HTTP traffic is the CERN website. They have, I guess it was the first website ever created, and they keep it accessible. And in case you were wondering, obviously I can access the internet from my phone. It's just like a man in the middle. So the Pineapple is using a legitimate network that I possess, and then it's broadcasting a network to other devices. So devices connect to it and they can actually do things. The Pineapple serves as it's called a man in the middle.
All you did there was you just broadcast an open network pretending to be McDonald's. You didn't have to do anything fancy. Some person connected to it and now you're capturing their traffic.
Exactly, yeah. And so you can see some traffic has been generated there from me just Googling. And then there you go, the CERN website. So you can see the client, this is the device that I'm connecting to it with. And then these are the actual URLs that I'm accessing. And of course, if there was cookies associated with whatever I was performing, I would just be able to see them down here. Really interesting. That's a really fun module within it. And then let's also take a look at the Evil Access, the Evil Portal. It's the name for it. We talked about a little. It just allows you to set up captive portals. It also comes with a default captive portal. So we can go ahead and start it right now. We'll hit create new portal. People make tons of these. They put them up on GitHub. I wish I could remember and attribute this person's username, but there is a GitHub user out there who has a bunch of them. We'll go ahead and just do the basic portal, which means that every client that connects to this network will see the same exact portal. With a targeted portal, you can present every device that connects based on some function of its identity, a different portal.
I found one. It's called Clio Evil Portals. Is that the one you were thinking of?
Pardon?
Clio Evil Portals.
Yes, that's it. That is it. Awesome. And so we'll go ahead and activate this, and then we can preview it. So this is just the Wi-Fi Pineapple standard Evil portal when you don't configure it at all. So when you connect, you'll see this is the default portal page, and here's your SSID, your MAC address, your IP address, and then you can go ahead and hit that authorize button to connect to the network. Awesome. And then it also has these allow clients. One thing I didn't touch on earlier, one of the big benefits of those allow list and deny lists is when you are actually conducting a pen test against an organization, frequently you're given a very specific scope of things that you can and cannot touch, right? Especially because organizations, they work in colo spaces, which are multiple organizations exist under the same roof. And so when you're in those kind of places, I've had it before. I was working against a client actually, and I feel like, should I even say this? The lottery for that state was in the same building. And so I was like, yeah, I want to make sure that I don't touch anything that doesn't belong to them, right? Because the lottery will come after you. Okay, and so now I've connected to it on my phone, and the captive portal pops up for me with a great banner of McDonald's free Wi-Fi.
So tell me, Cori, because this is my like a question that I've been asked in the past. Okay, so I connect to this portal, McDonald's free Wi-Fi or Starbucks or whatever. But how does that help you? Because are you going to ask the user to put in some specific credentials, that's their corporate credentials or something, to trick them into giving you something that's worthwhile? Because I mean, if you connect to McDonald's or whatever and you just put in some random stuff, it doesn't really help you, right?
Yeah, thank you so much for pointing that out. Exactly. So I would say the biggest goal or benefit of using the Eagle portal and these kind of captive portals would be credential phishing, right? So attempting to gain credentials for whatever it is. I think frequently people do things like Facebook or other social media sites. I mean, that's totally off limits in all pen testing, right? But those are some of the examples that I've seen out there. Never do that. It's an awful thing to do. I should say that. But yeah. Specifically in like a pen test kind of setting, that would be for whatever their main suite of tools is. So whether they use like the Google Workspace suite or the Office suite, ideally you'd like to capture those network credentials.
So you're going to fake, like when they connect to this Wi-Fi, it's suddenly going to ask them to enter like a Google username, password or whatever to get access to the internet, and you're going to trick them into giving their corporate details so that you can get into their network. Did I understand that right?
Exactly. Yeah. And also it does add a bit of legitimacy, right? Because you can see a network called like McDonald's free Wi-Fi, but McDonald's doesn't have a Wi-Fi where you don't have to go through a captive portal, right? There really aren't free wireless networks that exist without captive portals anymore. So just having one does give the target a sense of legitimacy.
I mean, obviously, you're not going to ask them for a McDonald's specific password. You're asking them for something corporate, and you trick them into giving that. Even though, so they think it's just a standard portal that's perhaps linked to Google, but it's not. It's you capturing the Google credentials.
Exactly. Yeah.
For the audience, please put in the comments below stuff that you want to see. Like, are there any specific Pineapple features that you want us to look at? Third-party modules or stuff, let us know. Cori, I think for a lot of us, it'll be great to get your input of your favorite Hak5 devices. And again, for anyone who's watching, please let us know which ones you want Cori to review and like explain. I think just coming back to like real world, do you find that in the real world, you're doing a lot of Wi-Fi pen testing? Do companies actually ask you to do that, or is it just like an add-on on a standard pen test?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've never seen it not be an add-on. I've never seen it done completely independently. It's almost always an add-on to work that is already happening, whether it be like internal testing where we start on a network with no authentication whatsoever, and then we'll just provide them a wireless card. Or in addition to a physical pen test where, I'm trying to access the interior of a building or a data center or a warehouse, whatever it be, and then performing wireless attacks there.
So when you're in your car, do you use a Pringles can thing, or do you just find that you get close enough to the buildings?
Yeah, no.
Show us some of your cool tools. Yeah. Sorry, go on.
This always works. And I've had it work pretty far as well, like to the 16th, 17th, 18th floor of a building. Oh, wow. When I'm probably 300 feet out. So yep. No Pringles cans.
And you said you had some other devices on your table. Is that right? Do you want to share anything that you've got and tease us perhaps for another video, or what have you got to show us?
Yes. So historically, I've for physical pen testing, I've always really liked using the Lanterl, which is like one of their older, devices. And it basically just lets you like SSH back into it. So you hook it up onto a network. And it's great. It just plugs into an Ethernet jack. So if you just walk into an office space and they have exposed Ethernet jacks out, you can just hook it up in there. Or I've done it in docks before, like computer docks. The Shark Jack, this is it. They came out with it, I think about 2 years ago. Most of the time, this is good enough for my job. I think the thing only has like a 2 to 3 minute battery life, but you just hook it into the network, you press the button, and it does like a quick Nmap scan, whatever you configure it to do. So a port scan of the network. And that's basically just to prove that you were able to get on the network and access it, right? Establish a real IP address. I find that this is just good enough for work, because most of the time when I am doing a physical pen test, I'm also doing it in tandem with like an external pen test where you start up public internet, and then an internal pen test where you have a device on the network. So usually I don't need to escalate my physical access to an internal pen test, right? I just need to prove that I was able to do it.
So you're basically proving that you managed to get into the building without them realizing and get access to a port on a switch. That's kind of the proof, yeah?
Exactly, yeah. And by establishing an IP address, like not being halted by NAC, a network access controller or something, I'm just proving that whatever is accomplished on that internal pen test could have been accomplished by that physical.
So in your experience, do you find that you can just get into companies' networks using the Wi-Fi? So externally sit in your car, get in? Or do you find that security is now got so good on Wi-Fi networks with like WPA version 3, stuff like that, that the only way to get in is to physically get into the building and plug into a physical port, or is Wi-Fi still wide open?
Wi-Fi is definitely getting better. I would say it's not as effective as physical testing or any other form of testing, really, but it does happen, right? We do crack PSKs and stuff in our job, but it doesn't happen at the consistency that other, tests are successful.
And just to reiterate reality versus the movies, do you still find that people are using like WPA weak, or is it WPA like version 2, WPA version 3 is especially in, I suppose, in enterprises. I mean, at home, it's a different story, but like, are enterprises really locking down their Wi-Fi, or is it just the devices get updated so they're so much better today?
They're definitely locking it down. I would see, and you can, even if you go back in this video and you look at the kind of things that we had seen in our dashboard, mostly it's like a multitude of WPA too.
Cori, thanks so much. I really appreciate you sharing, and thank you for not hacking me today, but hacking your own network. I thank you for doing that. And where can people reach you, just if they don't know already?
Twitter. You can find me on Twitter. I exist there. So,
Cori, as always, thanks so much for sharing. Really appreciate you taking the time. And just for everyone watching, I can tell you this: when we were recording this video, we went through a lot of trouble. Cori had to fix a few things. It takes a lot of time and trouble to do demos, and they go wrong. And Cori, thanks so much for not just talking but showing us how it actually works. Appreciate you putting in all the effort in the previous video and this video. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, David.